drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What is up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with my dad, Jon Dalzell, for another episode of You Got Boston. It's been a while since I've done one of these live ones. I feel like I've been doing more of the late night recapping the games episodes, but we have a week off or a couple of days off until the playoffs begin on Sunday. We don't have any games until then, so I figured, I'm not a TD guard and I can do one of these shows. So feel free to put in any questions, comments in the chat as we go. But first, I'll let you, Dad, to introduce yourself to the audience if there's anybody that hasn't seen you before on one of these. Maybe give us a 30-second introduction.
30-second, okay. My name is Jon Dalzell. I'm Noah's dad. Played college basketball, played professional basketball overseas for about 15 years. Love the game of basketball. I was a three-pointer, so the three-point shot is something very special to me and something I believe that I understand. And I noticed I always come on the show when there's really not much going on out there. So I think I fill in the blanks here. So I'm happy to be on the show again, and hopefully there'll be another pause in the action where I can get on again one day.
Well, last time you were on, people said you were a homer. I don't know if you saw that. But
I don't see
said
anything.
they said you were a homer. They were like, no, it's actually more objective. When I'm not being called a homer, that's not a good sign. That means that you were really being a homer, because that's what people call me.
I'm definitely a homer. I'm a proud homer.
He's not a reporter,
and,
so you're allowed to be your
yeah,
homer. I'm supposed to be.
I can be a homer.
Objective. So,
but I'm a homer for a championship team and the greatest basketball foundation in the history of the NBA. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Celtics had practiced yesterday and today, and so wanted to make sure I can relay the big pieces of news from those practices. They're off tomorrow and Friday. They play their practice again on Saturday, and then the game's on Sunday. So I'll be honest with you guys, there wasn't anything like super interesting from practice. That's part of why this was not like a super urgent episode to do. So mostly we're gonna reflect on the 61-win season, kind of discuss kind of what the keys to that were, and then look ahead to this playoff run and what it's going to take to repeat. And they hate the term defending the title. They hate it. Joe Mazzulla said it over the summer that we're not defending anything. Tatum has said this now like 3 times. Today in practice, he was like, I've already said this a couple of times, but we're not defending anything. We are forever the 2024 champions. And now this is a new quest, and 2025 is a new thing. So we can talk about defending the title. I have to just make sure I don't say it to any of the players, because they do not rock with that term. So in any case, before we get into predictions for this season, I know there's going to be people that are wondering about Jaylen Brown's knee. So I'll do a quick practice and Jaylen Brown knee update, because I know that's important to people. And generally speaking, that's kind of part of why we are going to these practices, is to be able to see if these developments and things are changing. So first thing I'll say is Jaylen practiced completely yesterday, did not have any limitations. Today didn't seem like he had any limitations either. We know that he had some sort of injection last week that was reported by ESPN. Joe Mazzulla confirmed it. The injection could have been cortisone. It could have been something else. I don't know. They're not going to get into specifics. We'll probably never know. We probably didn't even need to know that he got injections. I don't know why that came out, but it did. And Al Horford said he looked great at practice. Joe Mazzulla, Drew Holiday said he looked really good. And it generally seems like people are encouraged by what they're seeing. And I'm going to play this clip from Kristaps Porzingis, who was asked by Bobby Manning today about whether he had a chance to talk to Jaylen about the knee, because just a couple of weeks ago, last week in New York, Kristaps famously said that Jaylen doesn't need to be doing this whole Warriors thing right now. Maybe he needs to just chill out. So this is what he had to say today in practice.
Oh, we definitely talked about it, just because of my history also with some of the knee stuff that had bothered me in the past, so we definitely talked. I gave him my point of view and what I thought could help him, and he did the things necessary, I think, to be as healthy and as feeling good as possible for this run that we're about to have. So and he looks good. He looks good. He's always saying he feels good, but he actually looks good, and that's the most important.
So we love talking to Kristaps Porzingis here, because he he was about to go into further territory. I think at one point later on, he was like, I've dealt with something similar. Like, I'm not going to say what exactly, but he almost said too much. But that's the update from Porzingis. Yesterday,
I think
we
he
were
definitely
playing
said too much, by the way, but
You think he said
that's
too
the
much in
beauty.
that?
Yeah, I mean, he should, I'm sure Jaylen Brown probably slapped him in the back of the head about 5 minutes later. But I think that's the fun part about this team, is that everybody is kind of doing their own things. A lot of great personalities, and he's definitely one of them. I love the way he talks and the way that he has so much passion about the game and about being on this team. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's what he had to say. I think Jaylen has seemed to be in good spirits whenever we've seen him. Obviously, Jaylen had this 11-minute press conference like 2 weeks ago where this was the one day he was open to talking about the knee. I think he probably told PR, like, I want to do it. I'm going to answer all the questions. And then that's that. And he basically said, we don't know. I don't know if rest is going to help. Not sure about that. And it's frustrating. It sucks. It is what it is, but I'm going to do what I need to do and kind of get ready for the postseason. And he was very open about, there was a lot of questions and all that. What I wanted to ask you, because for those of you that don't know, my dad has both of his hips replaced. He tore his patellar tendon last year, quad tendon. Sorry. He's dealt with a bunch of injuries, played pro basketball for 17 years. And I don't want to make this the Jaylen Brown knee episode because we've had a lot of those, I'm sure you've seen. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but figured while you're here, and he still plays basketball like 6 times a week. So the things that he did, that they're working. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you about this idea that sometimes rest doesn't help, because I think a lot of people have been skeptical when Jaylen says that. Like, he wanted to play through the spring and he didn't really want to miss the last month of the season, where people were like, why not just sit in March? Like, their standings were locked up, just sit. And he was like, I don't know that nobody said the rest is going to help. And I think people at home are like, well, obviously it's not going to hurt. So we don't know exactly what he has with his knee. The official diagnosis is a bone bruise with a right knee impingement, which impingement doesn't really mean anything. It means that there's something like inflamed or irritated, but it's a bone bruise, right? So question for you about, from your standpoint, like, have you had injuries where when you were playing that rest actually doesn't help, and when you have something like just like a knee that hurts? Because that's kind of all we know about this. Like, what's the thought process mentally too?
I mean, there's 1,000 different possible things that he was dealing with, because it's one thing that I definitely have learned over the course of my life and dealing with injuries, is that every injury is a little bit different. You can categorize it, maybe you can give it a name, but it's not exactly the same. And whatever he was dealing with, whatever he's dealing with now, even doctors, even the best of doctors, might not be able to tell exactly what it was that's actually bothering him. One thing that I'm sure that they did is that they eliminated things that could really cause further damage, because I'm sure that he knows and is smarter than that he's not going to go out there and risk really like ending his season or something like that. Well, the only thing they could do is maybe inflame the injury that he's already dealing with, which would just cause him to maybe take a step back from where he was at, but not anything really serious. And I think that he, one of the things that I'm sure he's been playing basketball his whole life as well. So, and one thing that you have heard me say many, many times, growing up and dealing with injuries, is you have to listen to your body. You have to understand your own body. No one can really tell you what's going on. You have to have common sense. But I'm sure that he recognized something that maybe he had dealt with before. It was something that he felt, something that was familiar to him, and he realized that it was not going to be causing any real serious damage or any serious risk to continue to play. Pain is not always something that is scary, and athletes deal with pain every day. You think that everyone else, every guy that's out on the court right now, is not dealing with pain. That's ridiculous. They all are, and it's all different levels of pain. And he got to a point where you could see that it was bothering him, which was when the press and the fans get a hold of that and start talking about it. But there's a lot of the guys running right next to him that are feeling pain, but they just are able to, kind of overcome it and disguise it a little bit. So I think that, he knew that he was okay. I don't think that he was worried about it particularly. And I think the team, I'm sure, did the behind the scenes work to make sure that there's not something structurally damaged to his knee or something torn or anything like that. That's not the Celtics know what they're doing. And he wanted to play through it. And I, if your question is, is that something that I've seen or experienced? Absolutely. You don't stop playing. And I for one don't, and I believe this is even a medical answer. I don't think it's good to just stop and be stationary and not continue to move your body. So to continue to play and maybe not overdo it, but to stay on the court a certain period of time and to continue to practice and be smart about it. That's really normal, everyday kind of professional sports, and particularly professional basketball. So nothing that I saw that was going on was really out of the ordinary or unusual. And I think that, you talked about that he took a shot, some kind of a shot, and any professional basketball player or career basketball player, we've all taken shots, and they work, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but they're not scary to think about, and they're used as a healing type of like a kind of a massive quick type of healer. Cortisone is a healer. Everybody has this false image.
Can I stop you there? Because one of the things that was controversial last week is that Ramona Shelburne, who's the ESPN reporter who broke the news that he had these injections, she said they're pain injections to promote healing. And
Correct.
he missed. Yeah, and he missed. This was so he played last Tuesday, so it was sometime in the last week that he played. And so a lot of people online, including doctors, like Twitter doctors, that there's these doctors on Twitter, I don't know if you know, but they weigh in whenever there's an injury and they say my professional take, and they're not always right because they're not in the locker room. You don't know, but there's some famous ones.
I don't know them, and they're not unless they deal with professional athletes
and
professional sports. It's a whole different ballgame.
Right, but what I'll say is that people were it stuck out to people the idea that it was a cortisone shot, but that it was promote healing, and they were like, that doesn't promote healing, that's a painkiller.
Yes, it
so they
does.
were going to do PRP, which is he's using his own blood to heal the knee.
No,
that's
cortisone is a healing drug. That's not true. That's a false narrative.
We have people here saying cortisone shots don't work. In my experience, do you have an experience where it's worked?
Absolutely.
I already know. We have a
oh, here we go with the cortisone.
Yeah, you're a fanatic for cortisone.
Am I gonna have to take down my Twitter account tomorrow? No,
yeah.
Cortisone is absolutely. It doesn't work every time. It depends on the type of injury. It's not going to work for everything, and it also depends on the preciseness of the shot. Because if you don't put it in the exact spot where it's needed, which is a very tricky thing to do, and that's why only someone who a doctor who has a lot of experience and knows the business of giving a cortisone shot, only they are able to do it correctly and to do it safely and where it has the best chance of actually working. And it is a healing drug. It's not something crazy to do.
How much is big cortisone paying you for this?
Who? No. I'm just. This is like something I've had. I had this conversation before. The thing about cortisone is that you don't do it repeatedly into a certain area. That's where it can actually damage the ligament if there's a irritation or inflammation or something. And you do it once, and it may work for a period of time, and then it may come back, and the pain comes back, and then you do it again. You have to be very careful about doing it multiple times. That's the thing. I've done them many times, and I did one. And sometimes it worked. I mean, I have quite a few experiences I remember over my life where it worked beautifully, and it never came back. I did something to my shoulder one time during practice. I went and got a cortisone shot because I knew that it wasn't really damaged, but something just caused this serious inflammation. I got a cortisone shot. The next day I was back, and it never came back to me again. How do you explain that? That's something that actually healed it.
This person makes a good point here that we don't know if it was a cortisone shot. So I like to, when we're talking about the injury stuff, I want to say this is all we don't know. I'm just saying I think that the report that it could be a healing thing and also something that's only going to keep a few days, because there are some shots that require a month off. That's not what he did, right? He took one that he was playing a few days later. But my point is, it's just it's very possible that is actually going to be a huge aid to him. And the fact that everybody said he looked great yesterday, it might very well be connected to the fact that he took the shot and it helped. And that was the hope. We don't know that that's the case, but we'll see. I think on Sunday, we'll see if he looked better. Everybody remembers what he looked like before. I also don't think that he was going 100%. I think he was going in these games trying to test out different things and see what worked. And sometimes it didn't look great to us. But he had some really good games during that stretch too. But this episode was titled "Biggest Questions for the Celtics Entering the Playoffs."
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I think this is without a doubt one of the biggest questions. His health and his availability. And I'm curious, this is something we've discussed, but who do you think this team is if he's very limited / like can't really play? Like, what are they without Jaylen Brown? Because obviously he finals MVP last year, but they're also so deep and they have a ton of other weapons. Like, what do you think of their prospects if he's not available? And again, I don't think this is going to be the case.
Without sounding like a homer.
I
don't want to. I'll try to not sound like a homer, but this is a team not built around Jaylen Brown particularly. He's an important part of the team, but they also have developed the way that this team has developed is that, you know, besides Jason Tatum, and I would say that's one player that is not replaceable and would have a devastating effect if he's not on the court because of just the kind of great player that he is and well-rounded and how much he actually gives to this team. Jaylen Brown is also a great player. He's a different kind of player. And I think that it changes the personality of the team when he's not on the court, but I don't think that the level or the ability to be a great team drops. It definitely goes down. There's no question, but it doesn't drop to a point where they can't go on without him in a way. So I think that they're still a great team. They're still a team that could be definitely a championship caliber team. Even without him, I think that it's more of a psychological effect that it would have on the team, which that's equally troublesome to, that he's one of their leaders, he's their warrior. He's the guy that they look up to. And I think it would be, psychologically difficult for them, particularly in the beginning, to try to go out there without him and knowing that he's not able to play. Not that he's just limited, but he's not actually going to play at all, or he's out for the entire playoffs. That would be hard on the team. Psychologically, but I still think that as a group, once they got past the psychological part, as a basketball team, without him out there, they're still a great team, and they still are capable of continuing on and making a deep run in the playoffs.
I tend to agree. I think the biggest thing that I think they would lose, besides for the fact that he is one of their clutchest players, he's hit some big time shots. I don't know if you saw this, but the NBA has a Clutch Player of the Year award, and they have I think 20 players that they were nominated by the 30 NBA coaches. 3 of the players are on the Celtics. 3 of the 20 are all from the Celtics. They're the only team that has 3 players. Those players are Jason Tatum, Derek White, and Jaylen Brown. And at first when I saw it, I was like, really 3? And then I thought about it, and Tatum has been one of the clutchest players this season. He's had multiple game winners. He has the highest field goal percentage of his career now. He's like the 3rd highest of all time for final go-ahead shots or game-tying shots, which is crazy because last year he missed all of them. So that's with a terrible year in the clutch.
That's called greatness.
Derek White in the 4th quarter for the last few years has just been like literally, if he's wide open in the 4th quarter, I just assume there's no way that he's going to miss. And then Jalen's had some big moments too. So I think that's one of the things they lose is another weapon in the clutch. But
you remember when we were talking about Derek White, when we were saying that he was hitting all those shots and now he's not hitting them, and he used to be now, and that lasted about a week. By the way, I remember having that conversation.
When we had that episode, that was in December when we were talking about the things that was when the Celtics were really struggling.
There was like a 3-week break in the action, and that's why I was on the show. I remember.
It actually was. It was the play-in week. But I think one of the things that we were talking about is that Derek was one of the guys that did seem rattled. Like his confidence seemed like it took a hit. Whereas everybody else seemed like maybe they were not trying. Like I was saying, like the difference between effort and being rattled. Derek was a perfect example of somebody that was still trying hard. He just seemed like he was in his head. And later on, he really confirmed that. We didn't really close the loop on that, but he really said, like, I lost my joy of playing. Like, it really made him like he was in his head. And I think he's made a full circle. But what I was going to say about Jaylen before we take a quick break here is Jaylen defensively is the biggest thing that they would lose, because if you go back to playoff series that they played over the last few seasons, there have been so many times where he basically neutralizes an opposing team star player and just keeps them, contains them. They're still great, but contains them. Whether it's Luka, whether it's James Harden, like there's been a lot of those guys. And while they have a lot of great defenders, they don't have anybody that can do what he can do, which is go pick up somebody 3 quarters court.
That's a psychological element on the other team. That them going out there and recognizing that Jaylen Brown's not out there. If you're James Harden, you're happy that Jaylen Brown's not out there. And that's you don't want to make James Harden be happy going into a game. So
So it depends on the player. There are some guys he does a great job against and some guys that he struggles with like everybody else. So if they're in one of those series where it's like, this is a series where he would really have the upper hand, like if they face the Lakers in the finals and he can't go, that's a massive disadvantage. You know, like we already know what he can do with Luka, and it's like they have multiple wings. They're great wings, but there are some guys you can just put Drew Holiday on. But Drew's smaller, and there's things that he can't do as well. And so that's my biggest concern is the defensive side. Offensively, I think they have so many weapons and guys having great years, and it's not going to come down to taking one guy out. So we'll see. But quick, before we keep going, we're going to talk a little bit more about practice today, and we're going to talk about the road ahead to repeating as champions. Just want to share a quick message from our friends over at Game Time.
Game Time is the best way to buy tickets to basketball games, to concerts, all sporting events. We're in the middle of the NBA playoffs. NBA playoffs are about to begin, and there's no better way to look through tickets for games. I'm looking right now at game 1 of the playoffs. Magic come to TD Garden. You can go and download Game Time, look through the ticket options. You can see how much tickets cost for the game. You can see what the seat view is going to look like, so you don't have to worry about like getting a seat that's obstructed or you're behind the basket. You can actually look exactly at the seat from the point of view. And my favorite part of Game Time is that there is no extra fees at the end. So I can look at the prices. I can see right now it's about $150 for game 1. That's that. There's not going to be any hidden fees, taxes, anything like that. That is the final price that you pay, and therefore you can ensure that you're getting the best deal. There is a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And there's all-in pricing. Game ticket coverage ensures that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I've literally used Game Time for any ticketing purchasing need that I've had over the last couple of years of my life. Every time I buy somebody a gift, I use Game Time. And right now, you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
And for those of you listening right now to the show, quick, just ask that you to make sure you're subscribed both on the YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. And if you're watching this on CLNS Media, also like and subscribe. That it really helps right now as we're gearing up for the playoffs. We're going to do a lot more of these episodes. Probably going to do one after every practice and game. So yeah, you can find all of our post-game pressers. I always mention this, but if you want to see like everything that was said at practice today, it's all posted on CLNS Media. Kristaps Porzingis, Joe Mazzulla, Jason Tatum, all of that. It's the only place where you can find literally every word that is uttered by a Celtics player anytime all year. As long as one of us is there, we upload it on the YouTube channel. And you can find all of our other great Celtics content, our post-game shows, all that. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss anything. You'll make sure to know when all the new videos drop. So just plugging that. Other thing from practice today is this looking ahead kind of towards the path to repeating. It starts against the Magic, and it starts against Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. They're 2 stars, 2 younger stars, 2 stars that have struggled at times with their inefficiency. I think there's a little bit shades of younger Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but I don't know if that I would quite make that comparison. But I asked Tatum today about going up against Paolo Banchero, a good friend of his, both former Duke players, somebody that he's mentored and somebody that wears his sneakers. And so here's what he had to say about that.
Matchups, does it change at all the dynamic? Does it add a little extra fun to it?
Change the dynamic, no. And, that's how it should be, right? He's trying to lead his team in a playoff series and figure out ways to win, and I'm trying to do the same thing. And just shifting your mindset to it's the playoffs. So now, just having an understanding of friends out there. Nothing else matters besides doing everything that I can to help my team win. It's not really time for anything else.
So those 2 are going to face off. Paolo last night said that out of respect for Tatum, he's going to have to go at him every time. And that's the best way to show respect for him and his mentorship. I'm curious for you, as you look at that Magic team, I don't know how much you've gotten a chance to watch them, but what are your kind of initial thoughts on Paolo Banchero as a player and Franz Wagner, and kind of what the challenges that they might propose as these 2 teams face off? They're younger. They have one of the best defenses in the league and one of the worst offenses in the league. And I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out in the playoffs, but that's the general. That's the 4-1-1 on the Magic right now.
Yeah. I've seen them play several times. I'm definitely not an expert, but what I see is I'm not afraid of this team. I think that they're a couple of years away from being a real competitive team that can actually make a run in the playoffs. I mean, they were 41-41 this year. I don't even understand how, to be honest with you, I don't know how the 41-41 team even gets into the playoffs. That doesn't jive very well. That
Called the
doesn't
Eastern
make sense.
Conference.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess so. But they've won half of their games, and the other half they've gotten beaten, and that's not a great team. When I've seen them play, Bencaro was very, very inconsistent, and I don't know if that was over the course of the season, but I mean, I'm talking about off the rails kind of game that I've seen him play.
Yeah.
I've seen him play maybe 4 or 5 times, and 2 of those games he was bad, and I'm talking about really bad. So I mean, I think that he's still got a long way to go. He's a very talented player, obviously, a super talent, but I don't think that he's ready for the Celtics. I don't think this team is ready for the Celtics. I think that they're a couple of years away from being competitive. There's some super individual talent. I think the X factor, what I've seen, and I saw the other night in this game that Cole Anthony is the guy that can go off like crazy, and I've seen him do it multiple times. So those are the guys that they can certainly win a game or two. It's not like I'm saying that it's going to be a sweep and it's not going to be competitive, but over the course of a series, this team cannot beat the Celtics. They just can't. And I think that they already know it. To be honest with you, I'm sure they'll give it their best. They're a very energetic team. They're super competitive. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch because I like watching these guys because it is fun to watch guys that play as hard as they do, but they don't execute very well. So.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that. And I do think it reflects what you say. If you look right now at the plus minus numbers, they've actually been better with Paolo Banchero sitting when with just Franz Wagner out. So that's, I think that's some numbers back that up.
He forces a lot. He just forces way too much.
I think he has the ability to be a great player. I think, I look at some of the critiques on him. They remind me a little bit of stuff that people were saying about Jaylen Brown earlier in his career, where it's like
I was going to say that. Yep, it's true. He doesn't know when to back off. He doesn't.
And he's only his 3rd year in the NBA, which in NBA terms, that's very young. He was in the playoffs last year and had a great 7-game series against the Cavs, and that's the same Cavs team that's now the best team in the NBA or the best team in the East. So they pushed them hard. They ultimately couldn't score enough. That was their big issue. And I think right now the question is, are they going to be able to score when there's been a massive 3-point differential between them and Boston all season long? If the Celtics are shooting somewhat normally, it's going to be really hard for them to keep up. So that's, I think that's if we're dumbing it down to one thing, it's the fact that this team, they're not going to be able to keep up with the scoring. But on the Celtics side, I think the biggest challenge will be just how physical this Magic team is. And people have talked a lot about the injury thing. I'm curious your standpoint because this is one of the most physical teams in the league. They do have lots of long, big, athletic players. And people are some people I saw online and other reporters were saying, you kind of want to avoid them in the first round because you don't want to get injured. You don't want to take too much of a toll on you heading into the next round, if that's what you're thinking. But I was kind of thinking about this. My initial instinct was I hear that, but also most injuries end up being non-contact. Most injuries are not you banged into a guy who plays hard. I don't know. Do you feel like there's a real these hard playing teams that are very defensive minded and physical? Are you really at a higher injury risk, or is it I'm thinking back to Kristaps Porzingis' injuries? So you don't even really know what happened. All of a sudden he's just walking off the court. Not that they can control it now, but is that a legitimate concern? I guess going into a series like this where it might take a physical toll on you that maybe playing the Hawks wouldn't have taken.
No, I don't think so. That's a non-factor. I think that it can take a toll physically on a team to play a team like Orlando for if it goes 6 games against Orlando is going to take more of a physical toll on the entire overall physicality of the team. As opposed to if they played Atlanta, which is not as physical team. It's not about injuries. It's more about you have to come out of that series and kind of hit the refresh button and be ready to go into another more competitive series, and so on and so forth. So if the first round team kind of wears you out a little bit more than other teams, that's something that it is a consideration. That's why if you're playing a team like that, I'm sure that I'm sure that the talk behind the closed doors, at TD Garden is, let's make this 4-0 and be on our way. Let's not fool around with these guys, which I'm sure they're not taking them for granted because they're a professional NBA team. They're not looking past them, but they also want to make it short and sweet so that they don't have to get it dragged out and don't have to get worn down by a team like that, because they will get worn down by them.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And you look back at 2023, they didn't take care of business in the first round. That Hawks series with Trae Young should never have gone to 6 games. They go back to Atlanta. That's before I covered the team, but I remember being like, this should not be a 6-game series. That Hawks team wasn't good enough. And then they go to Philadelphia and they fall down 3-2. They never should have been trailing in that series. Joel Embiid even missed games in that series, and they're trailing 3-2. It takes a Tatum late game, takeover in game 6 to push it to 7. Right. Next thing you know, they're in that Miami series. They don't take care of business again. They fall down 3-0. Now it relies on winning in game 7, and Tatum rolls his ankle in the first play of the game, and that's it. Right. So this group, they know what happens when you don't take care of business right away. And I felt like that was the big difference last year, that they did take care of business from the jump, and they never let any series
That's
go
the
beyond.
Stepping stones. That's right.
Yeah.
That's the stepping stones of a team that's headed to a championship. You learn from those things. You don't let them repeat themselves, because you have something. It's not a hypothetical. It's like, remember what happened last year. We're not doing that again. We're going out with a killer instinct. We're going to make this short and sweet. And that's the difference between a team that's trying to get there and a team that's already had enough experience to actually do it. And that's what we all saw last year. It was a team that was on a mission and knew what they were doing. They knew how to get to the top.
And keeping these series as short, I think, is so important for Al Horford, for Porzingis. Like, ultimately, when they got to the finals, Al was still playing at the same level that he was playing in April, because he really wasn't being worn out that much. Like, these 5-game series means that now you have 4 days off, 5 days off before the next round, while maybe the other team is battling till game 7. So I don't think they're going to be able to do that again. They're not going to have another playoff run where they go 16-3. Like, that's ridiculous that they did that last year. And the fact, from like a reporting standpoint, I never went back to one city. Every city that they played against, they went there for games 3 and 4, came back home and wrapped things up. Like, we never went back and forth, which just shows you like how much of an easier thing it is. So I do think that like that is going to be a key priority, because if every series goes 6, now you get to June, you're playing against a young OKC team. They're not going to be feeling the mileage the way that the Celtics stars are, who played through June and played Olympic basketball and are all older too. So I agree with you that Cole Anthony's an X factor. I see people here in the chat are saying that as well. We're going to do like just a couple more minutes. If there's any last questions people want to drop in the chat, feel free to do so, and we'll do a couple of questions. If not, we'll wrap up shortly here. But I do think, generally speaking, like I was asking Joe about this yesterday, Joe Mazzulla. He was saying, they have coaches he has assistant coaches that all year long have been scouting Orlando, assistant coaches that all year long have been scouting the Hawks. And last night, it's like they're watching, being like, is all my work going to be put on blast here, and are we going to actually actualize it all, or am I kind of off the hook for this series? And I'm sure there are people, I'm curious, but I'm sure there are people who would be happy to not have their scout be involved. Like, they can kind of sit back and relax during the series a little bit more. But I'm sure in the same way you put a lot of work into it, you want to see that play out. But I don't know who it is. I would love to know who the coaches are that are involved in each. They were scrimmaging after the game today, after practice. We were waiting so long for Tatum to come out, like probably an hour in between Porzingis and Tatum. So we're all just like 40 reporters are all just sitting there. TV stations, it was like way more than usual, because it's like they just figured out who the playoff matchup was. And all the assistant coaches, except for Joe Mazzulla, he wasn't playing, but they were all playing 5-on-5 basketball. Joe was running on the treadmill upstairs. We could all watch him do that too. And they were so competitive, so intense. And I'm just sharing this as a side note because I thought it was interesting. But
you mean the coaches were playing pickup basketball?
All the assistant coaches, they were all playing. Yeah. Nice. And I was talking to one of the assistant coaches who wasn't playing, and I was like, oh, you're letting them off the hook? And he's like, well, I played yesterday. Like, I don't do every day. I do like every other day. He's a little bit older. And I said, like, what's up? Like, what's up with the, like, why do you guys do this? Because usually I can hear it that they're playing 5-on-5, but this was the first time in a while that we've been able to just sit and watch the whole game, which I'm sure they'd rather us not. I didn't film it. I was like, they can have their time. But It's funny to see who's like much better.
That's
There's,
cool.
like,
Yeah,
huge,
that's nice.
huge discrepancy in who's really good.
I'll
And
bet.
who's, like,
I'll bet
not
they
that
have
good.
a no. I'll bet you in they have a no Joe rule. Joe's not allowed to
No,
play.
Joe used to play and he kept getting hurt. So I think he used to. Remember he missed games because he hurt his
Yeah.
eye.
I thought
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
he,
think.
I thought maybe he's too competitive, or he was getting.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
getting
Like, I
into
don't
it
think
with
the
us.
coaches don't want to play against him. I think like
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
oh, like or yeah, like he
They
can't
probably
play.
said, no, you
He's
can't
taking
play
the
with
risks.
us anymore. You're out of control. You're too much.
Well, he didn't play. He was sprinting on the treadmill upstairs, which was hilarious. Watching the game.
That's cool.
But anyways, one thing that was interesting to me that I'll just mention this if there are no more questions. But the coach that I was talking to was saying that part of the value in doing the scrimmages, especially in the playoffs, is that a lot of times these guys are so in the film room and they're coming up with ideas and they're, telling guys what to do and training them, that it's easier said than done. And then when you go play even in a stupid pickup game where they're obviously like, these guys are all like past their primes and everything, when they're suddenly you realize that the things that are really obvious to do are not that easy. Like running to the corner 5 possessions in a row and nobody's passed you the ball. It's like, it's hard to run a 6th time, even though that's the right thing to do. And so he said like they actually do this stuff just to get a sense of like putting themselves in the shoes of the players a little bit, so that now when they go coach tomorrow, they just played yesterday. They understand the emotions a little better. Like it keeps them like connected to the game. And I was thinking, just one of the interesting things about this team and how young all the coaches are. They're all young. They all played D1 basketball like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah. You look at like the Warrior staff; they're all like way older. And so it was just another just interesting dynamic is that there's that competitive spirit that spills over to the assistants. And I liked watching it. I know who I can trash talk to. I'm keeping everybody's names anonymous because it felt like the media shouldn't have been there, but I can still use them when I talk to the coaches. So it was funny to watch. Question, one thing about double big lineup. This is the last. I'm just going to take this question, then we're going to wrap here. But I would not be shocked if Joe plays a lot of double big against Miami. Double big lineup, whether that's with Luke, whether that's Al and KP. I don't see a world where he suddenly moves Drew, Derek, or Jalen to the bench in game 1. So I don't think they're going to start the double big lineup. But a lot of times we discuss the starting lineup so much, and they play together for 8 minutes the whole game. Like the starting lineup is not what matters. Who closes is what matters. And I think a lot of times coaches laugh when they see fans in the media obsess over the starting lineup because they know that the closing lineup's really the one that's going to be the tough decision. And I would very much not be surprised if Joe closes games with a double big lineup, depending on how things go, because this is, if you're going to ever go double big, this is one of the 3 or 4 teams in the league where you would do it against. And the net ratings have been great this year. It's a revelation for the Celtics. It's been a revelation for the entire NBA this year, just seeing how effective it is to have 2 bigs, especially because Celtics bigs can shoot except for Luke. And Luke has been so awesome this year that he doesn't need to shoot because
unbelievable.
He's been,
unbelievable. He's just fantastic, unbelievable. I mean, he's getting the credit for it. He doesn't need to hear.
He's getting the credit for it.
Talk about it. He's getting the credit now. Everybody realizes this guy is special. He's a character, and he's a great basketball player. He mixes it up with his goofy stuff, but don't be fooled by it. He's a great basketball player. He had just an outstanding season and was really, really an important factor in the success of the regular seasons, no question. And everybody knows it. Everybody saw it.
And he's also one of the funniest people I've ever.
Yeah, he is. He's a real character. I think, and that's good for the team.
We had one press conference earlier this year where every question that we asked him, he would spend 30 seconds basically answering yes for it. And then halfway through, he would shift and start answering no for it. And suddenly, like 5 questions in, I was like, 5 questions in, I was like, has he answered anything? Like he was just conflicting himself and seeing he could use all these big words to like obscure it. And by the end, I was like, oh my God, he's literally trolling us.
He's messing
up
with
here at the podium. Like none of these answers are real.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And so he's been awesome to cover. He's been awesome to watch his development. And I think more than anything, I think Jason Tatum loves playing with Luke Cornett. He has been gushing about him. When he gets asked about Luke, he gives a stump speech about Luke as the most selfless player. He's the greatest thing ever. Like you know that Jason Tatum wants Luke back next year. So We'll see what happens. 100%. I think he's going to have a huge market. I've talked to people around the league that teams are going to want him, but I also think he could have gone somewhere else last year and he turned down money to stay in Boston.
I don't know how they're going to keep him, but I'm sure he's dying to stay because he could be lost in the shuffle if he goes to another team. That'd be.
But also, they're going to have to trade guys anyways, so maybe they clear up some room and they prioritize him over people that maybe you wouldn't expect. So we'll see. A lot of guys you want to keep.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll wrap up here. Any
I have one last question.
Yeah, please.
Will I be on the
hear it.
show after the parade or before the parade? I just want to clear my schedule to see when I'm going to
We'll
be
see
on
what the
show,
people
but-
think of you. You can sign off in the comments if you want. Might have to get another invite. It's been you can see like sometimes you just don't hear from me for like
I
3
know
months.
I'll be on the All-Star break and then after the parade. So far, those are the two times.
The All-Star break is a pretty busy time actually.
I know.
Here,
it's
let me
great.
drop your Twitter handle. You could use some more followers. Here, I'm dropping my dad's Twitter handle. You can follow him.
Oh God.
Jon Dalzell Hoops.
It's gonna blow up, none. Don't do it.
Yeah. Look, you have 111 followers now. We'll see if we can get you to 115 by the end of the week.
111? Wow.
You have 111, yeah.
I had 99 when the show started, so that's good.
Yeah. No, you didn't. Today?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
No. You gained some followers when I posted highlights of you making some threes in that senior basketball game in Connecticut that I went to.
Okay.
So people were like, okay, I'll give him a follow. So and then somebody commented, I've played against that guy. He should not be playing in a senior basketball game. That's unfair.
Yeah, I retired from senior basketball, by the way.
Yeah, senior basketball.
I'll be at the Y.
Yeah. Well, someone asked you where to play basketball.
What's that?
I guess that'll be the last. Someone here actually asked this question. You probably know better than anybody. I'm gonna scroll up. Where's a good place in Boston to get into a game if you're trying to play pickup? You know the answer better than me. Do you want to answer
Yeah,
the question?
I mean, the place that I play all the time is at the Wells Ave YMCA. Every night there's 4 full basketball courts there. Every night it depends. Not every night is the same, but every night there's pickup basketball. And I've if anybody wants to say hello, I'm there 6 nights a week from 6 o'clock until about 7:30. So I'm home for dinner by 8.
Well, there you go. So now it's gonna be too crowded there. Now that you gave us PSA,
it's gonna be a
you're never
mob
gonna be
there.
able to get in the game. Yeah.
All my followers are going to show up at the same time.
Yeah. Probably 8 of them are bots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks so much, everybody. We'll have more coverage this week. I will be at Celtics practice on Saturday. We'll definitely have stuff post game on Sunday. We'll probably do a preview show. Now you can go watch the play-in game, the 9-10 play-in game. Nobody's won a 9-10 play-in game and actually made the playoffs, so we'll see how relevant these games are, but we'll lock in and watch anyways. Thanks as always for watching. Please subscribe to CLNS Media. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, You Got Boston Podcast. I'm trying to actually build up this YouTube podcast. People are always like, oh, like keep podcasting, but I need more subscribers so I can actually do this. So subscribe if you're not already. Tell a friend, leave a review. And thanks so much as always, and we'll see you guys soon.